Welcome to the Staff Development Program of the University of Sri Javadanapura. The Staff Development Center of the university organizes a series of workshops for the participants of its CTHE program. Among the different programs we have organized, today we have come to an important session on the strategic planning and management for university. The resource person for today's session is the Registrar of the University of Sri Javadanapura, Mr. Anuruddha Valevita. Thank you very much, Mr. Valevita, for kindly agreeing to be the resource person of this program. This session mainly focuses on some important points which the academic staff members who follow the CTHE program in their career of the university, in their stay in the university life. I will be asking you a couple of questions for which you might answer based on your experience.
Right.
And just to begin the discussion, let's focus on the beginning of the career as an academic.
Mm-hmm.
When a person joins as a probationary lecturer, what should they do to get the confirmation in their position? Or if a person joins maybe as a senior lecturer or a professor to the university system, what is the path they should follow?
Right. Thank you very much giving this opportunity. It is, as well as it's a pleasure for me because I also from this university. We'll take in 3 steps. Number 1, if you joined as a lecturer probationary. The second one is if you joined as a senior lecturer, and if you recruited as a professor. So if you recruited as a lecturer probationary, mainly there are 3 points or 3 criteria should be satisfied to promoted as well as go for the next promotion. Number 1 is, as you mentioned, the relevant lecturer probation should complete CTHE program successfully. Number 2, 3-year probation period with a very good comment about his behavior, works and attitudes. Number 3 is the relevant postgraduate qualification. Right? Normally, for the management faculties and the art social sciences faculties, it should be a 2-year degree. For the science faculties, it should be 2-year research degree. It's mean either MPhil or PhD. Right? If you completed these 3 requirements, what you want to do is you can make an application, not application, just a request from the Vice Chancellor through Head of the Department and Dean of the Faculty, mentioning that I have completed my postgraduate requirement, I have completed my CTHE, I have completed my 3-year probation period to be confirmed in the post. Then when we take as a senior lecturer, we can recruit at senior lecturer grade 2 as grade 1 in a direct recruitment basis. There they have already completed their postgraduate qualification. So what they want to do is, they want to complete 3-year probation period and the CTHE program. There's a special occasion. If we recruited a senior lecturer from another university who has already confirmed in the post, their probation period is not 3 years, only 1 year. Right? Then already if they have completed their CTHE in their university, you need not to do it again. So therefore, such a person should complete only 1 year probation period and make the request from, as we mentioned previously, through Head, through Dean to the Vice Chancellor. Then very rarely we can recruit professors also in direct basis. That means we will publish advertisement. Then based on that we can recruit a professor also. In that case, normally all these people, if they come from the university system and confirm their probation period is 1 year, if they directly recruited from the industry, the probation period is 3 years. If they already did the CTHE program in another university, no need to do it. Assume that if we recruit a person from directly from the industry, and in such a case, he or she want to do the CTHE program. So this is the way we want to confirm a person who joined as either lecturer probationary, senior lecturer or professor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Elevita, for your detailed answer. I think you have answered even my second question. But just to reiterate the points you have highlighted, can you briefly explain the career path of an academic who maybe join as
Yes.
a lecturer probationary?
Yes, it's very clear, doctor. If you recruited as a lecturer probationary and completed all these requirements in a proper time, within 5 years, that lecturer probation can be go for the next step, that is senior lecturer grade 2. Then after 5 years time or 6 years time, for if it's a medical faculty people, within 5 years, if the other faculties they want to complete 6 years, then can become a senior lecturer grade 1 ECD. Then the next step is some kind of difficult stage. You can apply for the merit promotion as professor or associate professor. If you completed the requirement mentioned in the relevant circular, either you can be a professor or associate professor. Even not only that, after being a professor, by completing 8-year service, they can go to up to senior professor. That is the highest position that you can reach in your career path.
Thanks, Mr. Valit. Now, I think our young academics would like to know about the benefits they have, the privileges or the entitlements of their position. So maybe in terms of salary, maybe in terms of pension or insurance. If you can please elaborate a little more on those benefits.
Yes. Really, now, as you know, according to the present salary system, you are getting a very high salary compared to the other sectors. It's a very fortunate, and actually we also like to give that kind of high salary, because then only we can recruit good people. If not, they will go for the industry. So very high caliber type people can be recruited if they pay very good salary. So there is a very good salary system for the all academics. In addition to that, you are entitled to getting study leave, right? If you want to do a master's, if you want to do a PhD, according to the available circulars, you are you can take either 2 years with pay study leave for masters, 3 years and 3 months for the PhD. Then if you do both, that means masters and PhD, 3 years and 9 months with pay. In addition to that, no pay also available. So that benefit is there. Then when you become as a senior lecturer grade 2, after completing service as a senior lecturer grade 2, you are entitled for the sabbatical leave. That is a very unique benefit available in the only for the, I think, yes, as per my knowledge, that is only for the university staff. No others are entitled this kind of facility. So after completing 7 years service in the senior lecturer grade 2, you are entitled for 1 year sabbatical leave. It is a full pay 1 year leave. In addition to that, you are entitled 2 air tickets yourself and your spouse to go whatever country you would like to go, and we provide that up and down tickets also. This is another benefit for the academics. In addition to that, we are contribute for the UPF and ETF. Then university system has its unique pension scheme also, and loan facilities up to property loans is up to 2 million. Then out of that UPF, if you need a urgent money requirement, you can take a loan as up to 60%. These benefits are available. After the when you go for the retirement, you are entitled for the gratuity and a huge amount of UPF also.
Thank you. I think a lot of our participants of this CTHE program are hoping to do their postgraduate higher studies overseas. They might want to know a little more about the leave application procedure.
Yes. Shall we start from the study leave?
Yeah.
That is the most frequently asking question from the academic establishment division. So as I mentioned earlier, if you want to do a master's, you are entitled for 2 years with pay and 1 year no pay. If you want to do a PhD, 3 years and 3 months with pay, another 4 years no pay. Right? If you do both together, you can get 3 years and 9 months with pay, 4 years no pay. These are the things. So the procedure is when you find out a placement, that placement letter is the requirement, because if not, we don't know for what purpose you are getting the leave. So with that placement letter, sometimes it says as offering letter or placement letter, you can make a request from the Vice Chancellor through head of the department, through Dean of the faculty, saying that I have been selected for this program, I need the leave from this date to onward. Then we have leave and award committee, that is a subcommittee appointed by the council, by the Senate. So this committee consisting with all deans and the Vice Chancellor chaired the committee, and registrar also there. Then once a month normally we regularly meet this leave and award committee. There it's discussed and make a recommendation to the council. With the council approval, you have to you can take the study leave, but prior to that you want to come for agreement with the university. That is the way you can make the request for the study leave. In addition to that, if you are going for the abroad for these postgraduate studies, then there is another procedure to get the approval from the ministry. It says that approval to leave out from the country, right? That is not a requirement of the university, it is a requirement for all common public servants. If anyone who go out from the country, it is a mandatory requirement to get the approval from the ministry. Previously it goes for the Prime Minister. I think now it is delegated to the relevant line ministry. However, what we want to do is we want to make a application to the ministry. Previously there is a documentary application, but at present it has been developed up to a electronic mode. So online you can make the leave approval. So within I think maximum 3 weeks you may get the approval for leave out from the country. That is the requirement. So this is the main thing for the requirement for the study leave. In addition to that, if you want to get a leave, you can make this request. If it is less than 6 days, you can directly ask from the head of the department or dean of the faculty, or if it is more than that, you can make the request for the Vice Chancellor. If it is more than 14 days, it's go for the leave and award committee. So this is the way you want to do a request for the obtain a leave.
Right. Mr. Elliott, other than the study leave,
right,
academic staff members entitled for some other type of leave?
Yes, actually, doctor, it's like this. Normally leaves are considered as a privilege, not as a right. Right? We want to mention it very clearly, because if not, people search what are the all available entitlements and try to get it. Right? Therefore, it's clearly defined as this is a privilege, not a right. Right? So under that definition, I will explain what are the available things. But whatever leave you are entitled, there is a main basic requirement should be fulfilled. That is your immediate supervisor in your academics, head of the department and dean of the faculty should agree to give the leaves. Even though it is entitled, if they are not agreed, even Vice Chancellor not proceed, because in such a case there may be a conflict. So main requirement is whatever entitlement for the smooth functioning, it should be recommended by the head of the department and dean of the faculty. There are several leave categories. Number one is vacation leave. It is common, it is actually unique only for the academics. In the previous, when we do the studies, we have a year-based examination. So whole year we do the lectures, we go for the lectures, and month of September most of the time we have the exam. Then after that close for the student as well as the academic staff, the university. Then at that time academics are entitled to get the vacation leave. Normally it's 2 months in our university. Some universities like Moratuwa says that 3 months. Normally it's in our, when we consider about our university, Jayawardhanapura University, it's 2 months time. But doctor, now at present what we have is we have the semester system. So in the semester there is a schedule. There are only 2 weeks time, I think, you have the study leave. So within that period, that 2 weeks study leave also I think you utilize for the paper marking purpose. However, for within that period you can take the vacation leave. But when we consider the medical faculty staff, there is a separate decision taken by the university council, since they are engaged whole year. These their studies and the practicals, whatever time they needed, if the head of the department or dean of the faculty agreed, you can take that vacation leave. But very recently our council also bit relaxed for the other faculties also. They are, in addition to that vacation 2 weeks period, you have I think 1 month time for the exams, and another prior to the exams 1 week or 2 weeks study leave, right? For whole that period you can take vacation leave, but there is a condition. If you take the vacation leave within the examination period, it is your not as an obligation, it's a requirement to make a replacement or make a method to cover up your exam duties. If all these requirements are fulfilled, you can take within the study leave period, within the exam period, and the vacation 2 weeks or 3 weeks vacation period. This category mentioned as vacation leave. In addition to that, doctor, you have 21 casual leaves, right? That is for the whole year. You have 21 days casual leave and 14 days medical leave. To obtain a medical leave, if it is more than 3 days, you should submit a medical certificate by a government doctor or registered medical officer. That is the requirement to obtain the medical leave. Then there is another provision, doctor. Say that you want to take in not medical leave for a longer period. You met with an accident or something like that. You want to take say 3 months time. In that case, first you can ask 21 days vacation leave. Then vacation leave is over. Then you go for the 14 days medical leave. That also over. Then you need additional more. For that purpose, we can calculate what are the unutilized medical leave for the last 2 years. Not the vacation, not the casual 21. If you have not utilized that previous year's 14 days and 14 days, you have remained, and we can say carry forward that unutilized medical leave for the present year. That facility is available if you need in a critical situation. That also there. In addition to that, as academic, there is another leave categories in the establishment code. All these things are in the establishment code. You can refer this. We call it as special no pay leave. Right? It is a special occasion, doctor. There what is happening is, say that if you have been selected for a research project and it is a reputed one and it is a goodwill for the country and the university. Right? Sometime may be a fellowship. In that case, you can make a request from the university by the same channel, head of the department, dean of the faculty, saying that I have been selected for this kind of fellowship or this kind of research project. Please grant me special leave. So, council have the authority to grant 1 year, but it is a no pay. Special no pay leave for participate such kind of things. These are the available leaves for the academics. Yes.
Thank you for your detailed explanation about the leave available for academic staff members. I'd like to draw your attention now on another aspect of academic job. That's about the increments they're entitled, and if you can please elaborate on how the increments are arranged, how they are going to be evaluated, and what is the procedure they need to follow.
Yes. Doctor, if you go through with your letter of appointment, there you can say your salary is as follows. It says that salary scale, say 54,000 into 2,000 into 12, likewise. Right? It says that say 54,000 into 12 into 2,000. It says that you are entitled 2,000 increment per year. Right? For that purpose, we calculate the increment from the beginning date to the after 1 year time. Right? After you complete 1 year time, academic establishment division send a increment form to you. In that increment form, actually we send it to the head of the department. Right? So head of the department need to mention how much lectures he has conducted, how much tutorial classes he or she has conducted, then what are the other faculty contribution and other contribution, how many research papers published. Likewise, it evaluate the criteria that can be used for the evaluate the performance of academic staff. So based on that, head of the department make a recommendation to the dean of the faculty. So the form comes to the dean of the faculty, then dean of the faculty evaluate it. If he agreed, he recommended it to the vice chancellor. Then vice chancellor go through it, and if he happy or satisfied, he can say increment is approved or not. Right? If it is approved or not, however, the application comes to the academic establishment division again. So based on that salary scale, if it is approved, we inform to the finance division his increment has been approved. Then from the year second onward, your salary has been increased by that 2,000 rupees. That is the procedure at present we are following, but it is a manual thing, doctor. So now we are thinking, because vice chancellor need to do it on an online basis. Now with the support of these our computer center staff also, we are planning to have a online increment procedure. So the concept in our mind is increment form is available in the our website, and we are planning to send us a notice for the candidates, the lecturer as well as the head of the department, saying that this person's increment is due, so they can fill it by the online, forward to the dean of the faculty. So dean of the faculty can give his the comments and forward to the vice chancellor. Then vice chancellor also can do the same and forwarded it to the with the approval to the academic establishment division. Then automatically, if it is approved, the salary has been increased and informed to the finance division. So this is the way we are thinking to do it. Actually, it is automation of the manual thing what we has already followed. So we'll try our best to implement this one as soon as possible.
I think that's a great news.
We'll try our best.
Yeah. Thank you. And then in your description, you mentioned about the research component that they need to include in the increment form.
Yes.
And in addition to the consideration given to research in the annual increment, every month we get a research allowance.
Yes, yes.
So if you can please elaborate on the procedure.
Yeah, there is, but doctor, there is a circular. According to that circular, there are several categories. Several categories means the all academic staff, lecturer, probation onward, are entitled for the research allowance. It is 35% of the basic salary. So if it is a publication, or if it is a postgraduate studies, or if it is a say that postgraduate supervision, and any other publication or any other accepted academic work, these are the several categories. If you have engaged or complete such a thing within this certain year, from 1st January to the end of the year, so you can make a application for the research allowance. That research allowance application is available in our website. If you go to the website, you can download it. So with that, you want to fill that application, and same time you have to attach the supporting documents. Say it is a publication, you can get the copy of that publication with the proof. Attach and forward to the head of the department, dean of the faculty, and to the vice chancellor. Then once a month we have a meeting called research committee, right? So in that research committee, your application is evaluated by a panel of academic staff members who are in the prominent in their research field. So with their approval, with their recommendation, the research committee approved the research allowance for this year. Right? Then it's again go for the academic establishment division. Academic establishment division calculate the amount, that means 35, what is the amount of 35% of the basic salary. Right? So it's informed to the finance division. So if there is any arrears, with the arrears, you are getting this 35% to motivate the researchers.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Now you talked about increment. You talked about leave facility and other entitlements of academic staff. I understand that there are circulars issued for all these different areas.
Yes. Yeah.
If newly recruited academic
Mm.
wants to find out more about these circulars, where do they get access to?
Yes, actually, Dr. Dishan, I also believe not only these administrative staff or the other supportive staff like clerical staff, all others, especially the academic staff, should know about these things.
Yeah.
Right? I am very flexible because I think sometime when there is a circular, rather than keeping it with our custody, if you also have the copy with you, you can discuss with me. Sometimes your interpretation can be different than me. Right? Sometimes it may be more accurate than me. I should accept it. Right? So all these circulars and the Establishment Code University Act is now available in the university website. Right? So it is a very good thing done by the University Grant Commission. Previously, all these things are in our cupboards, right, in our files. But at present, due to the changes of the world and the IT, all these things are in the university UGC website. So you can go to the www.ugc.ac.lk website. Under there is a column called policy. Under the policy, there are several things: establishment circulars, establishment letters, University Act. All these things are there. So every day they are updating it if there is a new circular. So best thing is what I requested from the academics also, when you have a free time, you just go through the UGC website and just see what are the applicable circulars and the rules and regulation for the academics. Then we can have a very good it's like a very good discussion also about these circulars. And sometimes we implement in one way, but you need not to accept in that way. You can tell, no, it says like this way. Then we can come for a good conclusion, because all these circulars are to issues for the proper administration, say like good governance likewise. So if you also discuss with us, we can have a very good implementation of the circular rather than deviating from one person to another.
As you very correctly mentioned, Mr. Arita, we all need to have access to this. We all should be able to read and understand.
Yeah.
But our reading may have, as you correctly said, different interpretations.
Yes, correct.
Our understanding of something might be different from how you or the officer would understand. So do you think we have a mechanism or some officers we can go and talk to if we have any doubts, if we need to have any doubts clarified?
Yeah. Actually, in the university system, Doctor, there are several, in our university administration structure, there are several departments in the divisions. So under the registrar, there is a one division, academic establishment division. Previously, I also handled this division. So there we are dealing with all the HRM activities related to the academics. Right? So we all these circulars, establishment code, university act, all are there in the establishment division also. Same time, if you have any clarification or question or whatever, you can directly meet the relevant office in the academic establishment division. Most probably he or she may be a deputy registrar or senior assistant registrar level person. So you can have a chat and you can have a discussion, and if there is any suggestion or doubt, you can discuss. No issue, because I can remember most of the time almost all the academics comes to my division, so we have a chat with them. Sometimes they show, well, the way your interpretation is wrong. If it is wrong, very politely we are ready to accept it, because our intention is not to say we are 100% correct. What we want to do is, because in the doctor, these circulars also have some kind of problem. Some places are very weak. So according to this weakness, right, according to these gray areas, the definitions can be, interpretations can be differ to one person to another. That is happening in the university system. Sometimes some academics comes and meet us and tell, this is done in another university in this way, right? But in your university, you are saying, no, you can't give this, right? But other universities give this, likewise. But in that case, what we can do is, doctor, we can have a discussion. All these things are in Sinhala and English. So, and say and can come for a good conclusion, fair conclusion, how we want to implement this. So, anytime you can come to the academic establishment division and have a discussion, or in addition to that, if you say that if you feel that you can't get a clear idea, anytime you can come and we also have a discussion and come for a conclusion.
Thank you for your very positive response. And then, since you mentioned about the different level of administrative officers we can go and talk to, would you please elaborate a little bit more on this, the structure of the administrative officers of the university?
Yes, Doctor, now according to the University Act, University Council is the governing body, right? If you say it is a private company, it's like a board of directors, right? They are under that we have the vice chancellor. Even though we have a chancellor, he act as a symbolic. It's like an honorary position. Vice chancellor is the head of the institute. He is the we call it as accounting officer, chief accounting officer of the university. So he is responsible all the activities, functions take place in the university. Then under the vice chancellor, there is a registrar. I am talking about the administration side. So registrar is the custodian officer for the assets and the records. In addition to that, he is responsible to implement all the decision taken by the higher authorities, either by council, either by senate, and or any other, even by the vice chancellor. So registrar is responsible to implement all these decisions. In addition to that, he is responsible for the disciplinary procedures of the non-academic staff also. So under the registrar, there is a bursar. She is handling the whole finance activities, and under the bursar there are deputy bursar and the senior assistant bursar. Likewise, it goes down, delegating the things. And under the registrar size, deputy registrars, senior assistant registrars, so on. This is the way the administration is going on. In addition to that, internal audit division also there. That internal audit division directly reported to the vice chancellor, not for the registrar or bursar. When we take a faculty, the dean is the administrative and academic head of the faculty. Right? Under the dean, there are head of the department for the academic side. Then there is a assistant registrar or senior assistant registrar or deputy registrar to administrative works of the faculty. Right? He is under the direction of he or she is under the direction of the dean of the faculty, same time keep in contact with the registrar. In addition to that, there is assistant bursar or senior assistant bursar also in the faculty to the functioning of the finance procedures or finance activities of the faculty. So this is the administrative structure of the university system.
Now, as I understand, the academic staff members time to time may have to deal with administrative officers for some official matters. If you can elaborate a little bit more on the communication channels they should follow in order to interact with them.
Yes, doctor, if it is a casual thing, just you can talk with us in any of officer, it is not issue. But in an official way, if you want to make some request with the if that request should be implemented by the direction of the vice chancellor, you can write it to the through head of the department, through dean to the vice chancellor. Say like obtaining a leave, study leave, likewise. But if it is just work with the relevant officer, you can even directly write to the relevant officer. Say if you want to get a service certificate, in that case you need not to write through head of the department, through dean to the vice chancellor. You can directly write for the deputy registrar academic establishment asking a service certificate. That is there. But if it is a special case, you have to, because you are under the direction of the vice chancellor, you can write to the head of the through head of the department, through dean of the faculty to the vice chancellor. Then vice chancellor will direct it to the relevant officer, either it's for finance side or administrative side. So they will do the needful. That is the way, the proper communication channel.
Right, thank you. Now, as you understand, we as academics, when we are performing our job related responsibilities, we get to interact with different levels of non-academic staff members. So I think our young academic staff members would like to know the structure or the hierarchy of non-academic staff members as well.
Yeah, if it is, as I mentioned, all these non-academic staff under the direction of the registrar. Right? For the registrar's roles, duty and responsibilities have delegated to the relevant deputy registrar or senior assistant registrar or assistant registrar. So when we take a division, maybe a senior assistant registrar or assistant registrar or deputy registrar, under that the relevant officer, there may be management assistants, PNs or management assistant, likewise people who, the supportive staff to carry out that duties, but the officer is responsible on behalf of the registrar.
Right, thank you. Now, Mr. Elevator, I would like to direct this discussion to a different area,
Yeah.
which some of our members would find useful. As you understand, we as academics have to do teaching and then research, and time to time academics will have to do some administrative positions in the university.
Yes, correct.
They have to be representatives of certain decision making forums and committees of the university.
Yeah.
So I'd like you to talk a little bit more about the administrative roles played by academic staff members. How do they get appointed? Because there are certain positions which are voluntary in nature, some are paid positions. So if you can elaborate a little bit more on that area.
Yes. Shall we start from the post of dean?
Yes.
Post of, actually in the University Act, there are few people mentioned as officers of the university: Vice Chancellor, Dean of the Faculties, Librarian, Registrar, Bursar. These people are mentioned as officers of the university. So Dean is a one administrative position. Right? So Dean, according to the Act also, it's mentioned Dean is responsible for all the administrative and academic work of the faculty. He is the boss for the faculty. Then there is a procedure to select a dean also. It says that by the out of the head of the department, the faculty board can elect a person as dean for a period of 3 years. Right? For after the 3 years, again there is a possibility to reappoint it. Normally, as a practice, he can perform 2 terms as dean of the faculty. But in some occasion, we can see if needed, he can perform furthermore. But as a tradition, normally in the university system, maximum they do 2 terms. Dean is one administrative position. An academic person can take this responsibility and serve to the university. The second administrative position is head of the department. Head of the department is also appointed for a period of 3 years, but that appointment is done by the university council. The requirement is, it says that with the recommendation of the Vice Chancellor, council appointed head of the department, HOD, head of the department for a period of 3 years. They are also, they can perform, normally they perform 2 terms, but if needed, can go. This is dean, head of the department. These are the common administrative positions available. In addition to that, doctor, there are some centers, likewise staff development center. There is a post for director staff development center. That is a administrative position. There is a circular related to the staff development center. There it says that there should be a director for the staff development center. He should be appointed by the council, calling the application among the senior lecturers of the university. Then director staff development center, director career guidance, that also similar. Then director external exams, that also another administrative position. In addition to then, some unit coordinators like IT center, likewise coordinators also there. These kind of positions are available to perform as administrative work to the academics. Actually, I like because they also do a great help for the university administration, because most of these centers or these positions are related to the academic works.
Yeah.
So they can perform it very well rather than other person. Therefore, their support is very much important to smoothly functioning and the development of the university as well as these relevant sections also. So these things are available for any academic to, if they want to, if they like to join for the university administration. And same time, Doctor, I want to mention this, when you apply for the post of professor, especially these handling these administrative positions give some marks for their evaluation, right? So in the circular, it's clearly mentioned, if you perform as dean of the faculty, you get 3 marks. If you perform as head of the department, you are getting 3 marks. Similarly, not only these positions, some other position like sub-warden, right? Academic wardens, then proctor, these things also available.
Right, thank you. Now, in your previous discussion, you mentioned about different decision-making levels of the university, like council, maybe senate, maybe faculty board. So, some of our young academics would like to know, how can I become a member of this decision-making, or can I become, or when can I become a member of this decision-making levels?
Right. Mainly, Doctor, we have two main decision making authorities, right? Number one is the council, the second one is the senate, right? In addition to that, faculty board also can be considered. So if we take as the council, council is mentioned as governing body of the university. For the easy understanding, if it is a private company like board of directors, they are the people who take all strategic decisions. They are the people who take decision to which direction that the organization or university drive. Likewise, they are the people who take decision how to university achieve their goals, objectives, vision, mission. So, university council chaired by the vice chancellor, and it consisted with all the deans of the faculties, right? Then if there is a deputy vice chancellor, he also a member of the council. Then if we have a campuses, the rector is a member of the council. In addition to that, there are some appointed members from the University Grant Commission, right? So these members are appointed by the ministry with the consultation of the minister, I think, to represent the university council. So that composition, it's like this, say all these members, our deans of the faculties and our DVC, our rector, say we have 10 people. So grant commission appointed 11, more than one person to the previous group. So always they have their power. However, the composition is like that. So they are the people, they are appointed for period of 3 years time. But however, in the university system, all these people, all these nominated people are very high caliber chartered accountants, administrative officers, likewise reputed high caliber people. This is the council. Then when we go for the senate, senate is called as the academic decision making body. It takes all the decisions related to the academic works. So again, it's chaired by the vice chancellor. All the dean of the faculties are there. In addition to that, all professors are there. All head of the departments are there. Then each faculty board nominated 2 people to represent the senate also. So that composition is there. They take all the what is called academic related decision, like appointing of the examiners. Likewise, these decisions are taken by the senate. Then the next stage is the faculty board. Faculty board is the we can't say it's a governing body, the decision making body related to the faculty level, chaired by the dean of the faculty, all the senior lecturers and the professors, head of the department, all the members are there. In addition to that, lecturer probationaries are not entitled to come to the faculty board, but 2 of them representing all the lecturer probationaries can be participated. In addition to that, doctor, 3 members appointed to represent the faculty board also, who are some kind of related people to the relevant faculty. As example, say for the management faculty, some retired CEOs or retired bank managers. Likewise, person who is in the relevant management field also can be appointed for the faculty board to direct the faculty board or give the advices related to the industry and other collaborations. This is the composition.
Right, thank you, Mr. Aritna. We have come almost end of our discussion. Now the last question I'd like to ask about something that we don't wish to happen, but if somebody is interested in knowing about the resignation, if you can elaborate the procedure they need to follow if they want to sort of, resign from the post.
Yes. No, actually, Dr. Dishan, it is an entitlement of them. So that is a right. Yeah. So anyone can resign from the post of lecturer or senior lecturer or whatever. But when you go through with your appointment letter, it has clearly mentioned you should give 3-month prior notice before you resign. If not, you have to pay 3 months basic salary to the university if you are unable to give this 3 months prior notice. That is the main requirement. So if you have a plan to resign, so what you want to do is you can give us a resignation through head, through dean to the vice chancellor. But if it is a requirement to give the 3 months prior notice. If not, it is we happen to deduct 3 months basic salary. Same time, doctor, one thing I want to mention, this since it is related to the academic staff, even though you have given us a request for the resignation, if you are not in a position to, if the university is not in a position to accept your resignation, the university council will not give the acceptance of the resignation. Very related into your case is, if you are in a, say, academic bond, if you take study leave and you are in a bond, still you are in that, we call it as a compulsory service period. In that case, the university says, no, we can't accept your resignation. In that case, even if say, no, I want to go, the council consider it as VOP, vacation of post. So, if you are not give 3 months notice, what you want to do is you want to pay back. But if you are not in a, if the university is not in a position to accept your resignation, we consider it as vacation of post. Vacation of post is not good for your career.
Right, thank you very much, Mr. Vedavita. With that, we have come to the end of this session. I think the participants of the CTHE program would find this session very useful. We'd like you to listen to this program, and we are going to have another follow-up session. If you have any questions or clarifications, we can discuss in the next follow-up session we are going to organize. On behalf of the Staff Development Center of the University and the Director, Professor Samanyapa, I would like to sincerely thank the Registrar of University of Sri Jayawardenepura, Mr. Anuruddha Vedavita, for taking your time amidst your busy schedule, especially this during this demanding time period, and giving us very informative session. And we are very proud to have you as the Registrar of the University, as a great alumni of our very own university. And we wish you, on behalf of the Center, Staff Development Center, we wish you a wonderful career at the University of Sri Jayawardenepura. Thank you, and looking forward to have another session soon.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Same time, I also very pleasure to join with you and have a discussion with you. And I also believe, as a student from the management faculty, especially Samanyapa sir, also one of my teacher. Most of the people in the management faculty are my teachers. So I also believe having discussion, doctor, it's improve our knowledge also. Because if not, we think we know everything, right? So if you come with some kind of even argument or suggestions or alternative method only, we also think this can be doing that way, right? But therefore, I as a person, as a officer or whatever, I believe if you come with these suggestions, even with criticism, it is a good for us to improve our knowledge. So having a discussion, especially with a stakeholder, so if we discuss this matter with one of my officer, they all say yes, yes, right? But if I discuss with a stakeholder, they think in their point. So they always come not ready to accept all these things. So with this kind of discussions definitely help us to also to improve our knowledge. So anytime I am not telling I know everything, but with the discussion I also can improve my knowledge also. So anytime I am like to come and have a chat with you. So if needed, I can take advice from my senior people also. Some retired registrars are there, especially our Brito sir. He is a very experienced person. Actually, he also agreed to come and join this session. So, but however, he agreed if you have any Q&A, question and answer session, he is like to come. So, we will arrange another one, take with all these things, so we can refer the relevant circulars and can tell how it is the legal background, as well as the other thing is, I believe not only the legal background, if we can say this is the way you can manage, then I think as officers we want to tell that way, that available opportunities or alternative ways to how to manage the situation. As example, if you want to take a study leave, so I believe if I can do something for you and if you achieve your targets, like if you get a PhD, then I also happy, I also do at least small help for your career. So likewise, we'll talk together and find out the method to provide a better service for the university academics as well as other staff without violating the rules and regulations. So thank you very much for giving this opportunity to me also. Thank you.
Thank you.